Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Academy Awards show. No, this is not the Academy Awards because the Academy Awards doesn't have a host, and I am your host, Stacy Rock, for this show, the Los Angeles Bushwick Book Club, where each month we choose a brand new book or an old book and we write a song about it. Where did this start? This started by Susan Huang in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And she is actually doing our tech right now in the background. So you can't see her, but she's pushing all the buttons that make this Zoom thing come to you in these strange times. So there are chapters of this all over the world. So if you are interested in not only our show, but one that might be near you or in Sweden, just Google Bushwick Book Club and you will find a chapter. If you're interested in finding out more about us, you can go to labushwickbookclub.com. This month, we have chosen Gold Diggers by Sanjena Sathian, and it is fantastic. Gold Diggers is a wildly imaginative story that follows Neil and also follows his lifelong friend Anita to some degree as they strive to figure their life out in America while also trying to fulfill their parents' American dream, what they think is the American dream for their parents. But it is not only an immigrant story, it is a story about love, it is a story about crime, it has alchemy and magic. It is wonderful. And I highly suggest you run out and buy it. And I highly suggest you run out and buy it at an independent bookstore. Yesterday was Independent Bookstore Day. And so I just want to push finding a local independent bookstore somewhere near you to purchase Gold Diggers or another book, but Gold Diggers. And when we first started the LA Bushwick Book Club, we did it in my front yard. I moved here and I didn't know anything other than I loved the Bushwick Book Club and I wanted to start it. I didn't know venues, anywhere to do it. So we did it in my yard. But the first venue that gave us a chance to perform was Stories, Books, and Cafe in Echo Park. So they are an independent bookstore. And if you are in LA, get this book from them. Okay, so how is today's show going to go? We have 7 songwriters. I'm going to introduce them now. And Sanjena Sathian is here with us. And we will have a Q&A with her in between songs. And then after the Q&A, we'll have a couple more songs. And then we will bring her back to do a reading from her book. And we will finish the show with a couple more songs. That's it. That's the show. And I guarantee you, if you are here, rather than watching the Academy Awards, you made the right choice, because this is far more interesting. And without much further ado, I am going to bring our first performer on, Richard Alwyn, who comes to us, streams to us through the whatever's happening in the internets from New York City to join us here in LA, to join you wherever you are. So Richard Alwyn, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks, Wires. This song is called Looking for an Echo. It takes so much to reconstruct yourself into the semblance of a human being. And then so much is only running the scripts. You could do it with your exoskeleton, but are you still alive? And can you tell, am I? You seek that which will help you flip the switch, because you're lazy and you wander and you dream. But you could live like that, some kind of modern bat. I'm sad I even tried to make that rhyme. The entertainer's cast. I'm always looking for an echo. many people seem to fit right in, while others never had a chance. And I've spent so much time trying to figure out which kind I am, 'cause I'm a striver too, a different shade of blue, just like you. I'm always looking for an echo. Go, 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 go. Some of the distractions, they are so worthwhile, while others not so much. You can see yourself, refuse to be yourself. You take a weekend off, you take forever off. You forget that you are always looking for an echo. Go, 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 go. Go, go, go.
Yeah.
Sanjena, for a beautiful book. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. That was great. I mean, as a singer, I'm always looking for an echo. Right? Yeah, that was, I'm so glad that you're able to join us from New York, and I don't know what will happen when we go live again. You'll just have to fly out once a month and join us. So that was Richard Alwyn, everyone. Thank you. And I am next, and I strategically put myself at the beginning because I'm like a bundle of nerves until I've played this song or a song. I had a strange experience with this book. So I am not I'm adopted, and something about the immigrant story and trying to find identity, although I can't connect to it in the same way, I definitely connect to something in there. And at the end, I don't want to give away what happens, so I'm not going to say what happens at the end. But I had like a little bit of I got really upset. I got really upset at the end, and I connected to this, I don't know, for me it's obviously sort of a genetic, just not being connected to something genetically or visually, and but I feel like that search for identity is still in there, and maybe everybody has it, and I mean, I don't know everybody's experience. So for me, that's how I tried to approach this song, is that connection with it. But I had a really hard time writing it. I don't know if it went off the rails or what happened, but I felt like a toddler at times because I couldn't find the right words to express this big feeling of how I connected to it. And so it was just really frustrating. I was like a toddler who couldn't figure out the words to express themselves. But this is what I got, and I hope you enjoy it. And here's my echo. I'm going to find it. Do you hear my echo? All right, here we go. Let's see what happened here. I don't belong here. The only history that is mine
is the present storyline. I borrow, I steal to make me feel real. Drink lemonade your mother made, swallowing ambition and gold. How to go on here? Identity, a family tree. Pull up the roots, replant the seeds. All that came before are the ghosts who still want more of that lemonade your mother made, swallowing ambition and gold. Wandering unmoored, throw the anchor out. If nothing comes before, then I'm creator now. Alchemize, metamorphosize the extraordinary needs into ordinary, mediocre things that make life sweet. Like that lemonade your mother made when we were young under a Georgian sky. There's nothing wrong here. Pop Adderall and do some lines. I'm golden, perfect, pure sunshine, drowning in the gleam of a westward dream. Drink lemonade your mother made, swallowing ambition and gold.
Yeah.
Gorgeous song. Well, I am so pleased and happy to have the author, Sanjena Sathian, on the show with us today. So I'm going to welcome her to the show, as well as Nicole Tourtelot, who is one of our songwriters. She is going to lead the interview with Sathian. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank y'all for having me. It's extremely flattering to have other artists engage so fully in my book. I'm really touched.
It's wonderful to have inspiration to write a song. And your book, I mean, I feel like I started 5 different songs. I was just having so many ideas and then trying to get them all to work together. And then the song that came out, which I'll play later, is the song that was like meant to come, but really so many concepts, so many stories within stories. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. So your book published at the beginning of the month, and you've been on tour, on virtual tour. How does it feel to be talking about something that, given the long time frame of publishing a book, that you finished quite a bit ago, right?
Yeah, that's it's strange, but it's been cool to re-enter it, to see that readers have kind of their own angle on the work, and so having, people just again sort of like fully engage with it, ask new questions, it gives me new vocabulary. So it's kind of cool to go back.
And I read that it started as a short story, but that you felt it wasn't a successful short story. What made the short story not succeed where the novel absolutely is very successful?
Actually, your songwriting process is kind of exactly what happened. I have lots and lots of false starts, which I'm sure is something that all of y'all can empathize with. I'm kind of a vomit drafter, as one of my professors in college called it. And the first iteration of this was from Anita's perspective. And for those who haven't read it, Anita is sort of the girl next door who the narrator, Neil, is kind of hung up on for most of the book. And the big problem with writing from her perspective is that in the first half, when the teenagers are in high school, she's so ambitious that doesn't really have an inner life. And so writing her perspective, there's like an emptiness and opacity to her voice. But when I kind of head hopped out of her head and discovered Neil's voice, things came together. So one of the big problems with the story was that it was from her perspective. The other problem is I just try to fit way too much into one story. And all that excess makes for good novel material that cannot function in the story form.
That makes sense. It's so interesting that you say you started with Anita, because I was going to ask you, I always think it's an interesting choice, to choose if you're a female writer and you choose a male narrator and to get into that. And I identified so much with Neil, but I was going to ask you about that choice, but you answered a little bit of my question, that you started with another character and moved into Neil. Why do you think Neil was the best narrator for the story?
I mean, some of it is so intuitive, right? I just started writing from his perspective and he just took shape pretty quickly. And I think I took some inspiration from some of my favorite narrators in literature. Jack Burton, who narrates All the King's Men, Esther Greenwood of The Bell Jar, the narrator of the book The Boot of Suburbia by Hanif Qureshi. Someone said they felt some Holden Caulfield in him, and I kind of get that. I don't know what it says about me that I sort of found my voice by channeling it through a 15-year-old boy, but there was something about, I always seemed like an overachiever in high school, but I think I felt like an underachiever. And so having Anita externally be the overachiever and then writing from the perspective of the underachievers have much more interesting inner lives. So he was right for that reason.
That makes sense. And, because we're a songwriting book club, we're always so interested in process. And I'm fascinated by how novels get written, because they're truly, I think, for someone who hasn't written one, myself included, it's a grueling process to sit at a computer. I think writing in general doesn't get enough credit for, it's a physical practice to sit there. But when you start a novel, do you know where you're going? Do you have it all plotted out? Or do you find out as the characters live through your words?
I never know where I'm going at the start. I think I need to have a little bit of a sense. I actually have titles pretty early because they're really useful for me as organizing principles, thematic principles. But often I start with conceit. So here, I was interested in gold theft. I was interested in something magic happening with the gold. But I had to write my way into the right characters, the right context. And then most important, what is the actual inciting incident, which anyone in the group in LA will probably hear too much about, because that is, that's obviously what screenwriters think about all the time. But trying to find the plot is really hard. Yeah.
It must be so exciting to sit down, though, to work when you get to find out what happens while you're writing it. If you don't have this place that you're, plot points are going to hit, then you get to discover that, which I think sounds really exciting.
On good days, yeah. I always have a few people I turn to talk through plot with. It's this, I don't know how it is for songwriters, but I feel like I have to protect what I'm working on so no one else finds out about it and ruins the mystery. But I always have to have one or two people who I can talk through plot points with, so I'm not totally alone in the process.
It's so funny. You have, in your answers, have answered questions that I had. Do you have people that you talk to about what's going on? Because I can imagine it must be lonely to be inside of a book, without anyone to talk about it with. And you went to Iowa, to the Iowa Writers Workshop, which is legendary place where many wonderful writers come from. But that it's a place where you workshop, you get to talk with people a lot about your work. So is there a loneliness to write a novel outside of that environment?
Well, I'm working again outside of workshop, and it does feel different because I don't have I actually in Iowa, I lived with two people who were like my most intense interlocutors, a poet and another novelist. And that was really kind of magical to be working through problems like over lunch or dinner after having been alone with it in the morning. That is like impossible to replicate. But on the flip side, it's kind of nice not to submit my work to 12 or 13 other egotistical writers who are sometimes ready to tear it apart. So there are benefits to being away from that place too, but I did have a really good experience in Iowa. I was really lucky.
I could see both sides of that. You know, having that feedback, but also sometimes wanting that privacy to just create. And the intensity of an environment like Iowa that's so competitive with so many people that are very talented, that makes a lot of sense. So the book really has a lot of elements of magical realism in it, and I was wondering, are there influences that you would say that we can track in the book, or authors whose work you've loved that are really present in the story?
Yeah, 100%. I grew up liking magical realism. I was never like a fantasy sci-fi person, but I really liked magical realism. I first kind of discovered it through the Latin American magical realists. I loved like Julio Cortázar, and I think I read him in Spanish class in like 10th or 11th grade. And then I started reading a lot of sort of maximalist magical realists like Marquez and Rushdie. And those are writers who invent and invent and invent. And like, you think of that kind of magical realism and it's like, oh, there's a dictator who's moving the location of the sun. It's very extreme, like a woman will cry full rivers. That's not the kind of magical realism I ultimately ended up writing. This book, even though I very much thought of it as a magical realist novel when I was writing it, people have responded to it more in terms of social realism, like that it more closely resembles the novels of like Jonathan Franzen or Philip Roth or Zadie Smith. And they are kind of like one branch of influence for me. But among the magical realists, I would say like Amy Bender, Murakami, like a lot of like Japanese sort of like quasi magical realists like Banana Yoshimoto, Shirley Jackson, whose work can function in both the real and unreal. So yeah, I spend a lot of time George Saunders, Kelly Link. I spend a lot of time interested in writers who sit at that, like the sort of borderlands between the real and the unreal.
That reading list that you just read off, I mean, it's just, you spent years there and happily.
Yeah.
Last question. Do you, when you write, listen to music or use music at all to sort of psych yourself up, get into a headspace to write?
It's funny. My boyfriend thinks this is like insane that I can listen to music with lyrics when I'm working, but I took this wonderful class at the Clarion Writers Workshop with Linda Berry, the comic book artist, and Dan Shawn, who's also a novelist, and they teach these writing prompts that if you all are ever stuck, I highly recommend Linda Berry's books, Making Comics and What It Is. They just have incredible writing prompts that work for, I think, almost any medium. And they would play music that like really raised your heart rate. And when I teach that, I'll play I'll play New Order, which like my students have never heard of because they're all like freshmen in college and they're like, this is so cool. I'll play like Kamasi Washington. I'll play various like kind of Indian fusion stuff, like Zakir Hussain, who's a tabla percussionist. So there's stuff that kind of raises the heart rate. When I'm deep in my work, I don't listen to music, but when I'm just getting my juices flowing, I do sometimes.
That is so interesting. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was so fun.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I feel every time. Well, I mean, we've had about 3 or 4 authors on, and I interviewed the first couple, and Nicole. I just love watching your interviews, and Sanjena. I read a bunch of at least online interviews. I didn't listen to any just because my head was too full of the book and everything. But I read a bunch, and I really love listening to your voice and what you have to say. And you named like 7 authors that I now want to go find. plus Linda Berry, I think you said, that I am going to find that so I don't have to be in tears every time I need to write a new song. Like, that's this new thing I've discovered with myself. It's just like the getting started, and I'm like, it's just so painful. Maybe there's something that will help me in there. Thank you again, and Sanjena will be back to do a reading from her book. So we have three more songwriters, and then we'll bring Sanjena back on. Our next songwriter is going to bring us an electronic piece using a modular synthesizer. Tim Bartlett, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks. I loved this book. It had so many different themes and elements, and it was just so rich in terms of just ideas that it sparked. And I felt there were a lot of times I was just really anxious reading it, and I just really loved it. And I've got these wires here, sort of musical alchemy is what I'm sort of thinking of here. I'm going to turn the mic off. I sort of go more thematic with the music than with lyrics. But this is just sort of taking all the elements that sort of were percolating around and putting them into this synthesizer, which is just a bunch of different pieces that do different things, and you put them together in a certain way. And so here's the piece.
loved being able to see all those the different camera angles. That was cool to see the setup that way. Keep it. It's a winner. I love that. That was really, and you know what someone said in our online chat here on Zoom? It was very cinematic. So, yes, I agree. It was very, very cool. I liked there are no stupid questions. So when you make like the rhythm like that, is that like binary stuff? Am I confusing like computer stuff?
Well, this is mostly analog generating. It's not in a way. So the thing that's actually making those pluck, the percussive ones,
yeah, that was cool.
That's actually an analog filter where you send electricity into it. I'm just sending a little ping into this, and there's all sorts of circuits in there, and they're sort of vibrating. And then depending on what knob you turn, it either lasts longer or shorter, but it's sort of piecing all the things together. And then the parts that sort of loop things backward are digital. But yeah, it felt like sort of trying to put all the different elements together and hopefully coming up with something that will, that will be musical. But you don't necessarily know what you're going to get at the beginning. So
yeah, I was curious about how the rhythm, I mean, I can ask you offline too, but how the rhythm is created, like, because it seemed like it picked up, it's like almost like a metronome that then found itself in another,
well, that's a sequencer.
Do you program each individual beat, or is it how does that?
It was polyrhythms. So here I've got two different sequencers, which the other camera angle probably won't show you any better. No, there are these two different sequencers, and basically they're just running. They're like metronomes, and I can turn on or off certain beats. So there are 16, and I have two of them running at sort of they're different rates, and so they're hitting at different times, and so it's sort of creating a polyrhythm.
That is really neat. Well, thank you so much. It's always really interesting to hear what you do, and I love it.
Well,
thank you. Next to the show is Justine Kragen. She's been with us since maybe the first one that we did in LA. Maybe, I'm not sure. I think so. Out on the lawn or in my garage. So welcome, Justine Kragen.
Thank you. I loved this book, and I thought it was really cool how it was in Neil's voice. Just having a female writer write in a young man's voice, I thought it was a really neat thing, and I thought about that a lot. And I loved how he was the romantic one, and he seemed like a guy, but he also had this romantic part of him, which I just really loved. And I thought it just had so much poetry, and it was also hip, and it was mystical. I just loved it. I thought it was great. So here's what I wrote. I look through the window every day to see what there is to see. I'm dark as a shadow on my way to a distant memory. I loved you once in a simple way with warm reciprocity, and I felt the change but tried to trust what I wanted
I know what's real when I look in your eyes and I see you seeing me. I'll never know why you had to go out in your new dream. You forgot to love me. I'll never know why you had to go out in your new dream. You forgot to love me. You forgot to love me. You forgot you love me.
Beautiful. Wow.
I am just very sad now. Really sad that you forgot to love me. Oh man, that just kind of really.
It happens.
I know those moments with Neil where he's like looking over at her house and just wants something from her that she's not really reciprocating. That was gorgeous. Thank you,
you.
Justine. So we are bringing Nicole Tourtelot back to perform her song. Hello, Nicole.
Hello. So as I said, I really loved this book, and I found myself thinking quite a lot, this special lemonade with gold in it. I don't think I'm giving anything away by telling anyone who hasn't read it that it plays a big part in the story, and I found myself really wanting a glass of that a lot. So this song is about that. It's called Liquid Gold, and about ambition, I guess. My face starts burning when they say congratulations. My bones are breaking underneath your expectations. What am I doing here? I can't say that I know. Are there multiple futures? What happens if I don't wanna go? Liquid gold, take me home like a country road to a house I'll never own. Liquid gold, take me home like a country road to a house I'll rent but never own. Being who you think I am, it takes up all my energy. Sometimes I wish that everyone would just give up on me. I could scream, I could cry, I could wail, I could moan, I could say things I regret, or just hang up the phone. Liquid gold, take me home like a country road to a house I'll never own. liquid gold. Take me home like a country road to a house I'll rent, but never own. Never own.
So gorgeous.
Thank you, Nicole. Nicole Tourtelot, everyone. I just want you to have your own like radio show because I could just listen to your voice all the time. When you're interviewing people, you could sing your own theme song. It's just soothing. You have a
It is really, really relaxing to listen to you. It sounds great.
very soothing voice.
Didn't it sound kind of 20s and 30s? There's something about, it was reminded me of Little Grass Shack or something.
Yeah. It's you need a radio show, Nicole. We are going to bring Sanjena Sathian back on to read from her book, Gold Diggers. Welcome again, Sanjena.
Thank you. I have not a lick of musical talent and am very much in awe of all of you. And also just love the idea that this premise, just that one creative project could inspire another. So thank you all for sharing your work. I thought I would read from the second half of the book. It's the first half takes place in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, where I grew up. And the second half picks up 10 years later in California. Northern California, not LA, but I thought the California connection might be fun. The main thing you need to know is that in the first half, you've been with the narrator, Neil, for when he's like 15 and then 16, and you've met his sister, Prachi, who is sort of the perfect golden child of the community. And he is sort of burning out. And when the second part of the book opens, he's 26, he's living in Berkeley and still burning out. So that's the only context you need for this bit. Something strange was happening to my family. Of late, the Narayan definition of success had morphed. This was not to say my parents supported my professional choices. In the summer of 2016, I was piddling around as a student of history, suffering their disdain. No, rather, they had accrued additional expectations, ones I did not discover until my sister Prachi fulfilled them. Shadi, 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 my mother kept squealing, the Hindi word for marriage. She declaimed the triplicate in times of both exuberance and distress, in much the way my Nani used to utter the name of the Lord, Narayana, 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 in prayer. So long we have waited for this shadi, 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 when Prachi first waggled her conflict-free diamond. This is a shadi, 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 not some country club buckhead Betty nonsense, denouncing my sister's plan to wear a white lehenga rather than the traditional red and gold sari. My mother broadcast her daughter's impending nuptials to her clients. When I was in college, she had begun a second fated career as a realtor. The wedding talk helped close a deal, in much the way the scent of freshly baked cookies in an on-the-market home does. The general whiff of familial completion is infectious, makes everyone hot for suburban settling. Preparations for Prachi's shadi, shadi, shadi were even impinging on my life on the West Coast. Our parents remained in Georgia, but my sister and I had each made our way to California by way of the tech bubble and academia, respectively. She lived on the third floor of a converted Victorian in San Francisco, and I in a cannabis-infused walk-up in Berkeley. And on a particular foggy day in June, my roommate Chidi and I were running late to a party at said Victorian. We stood by Alamo Square Park, taking in the vast bay windows of Prachi's nearly $3,000 a month apartment, while I sucked on my vape. I discerned the shadows of her friends moving about on the other side of those cake-like window trimmings, and something about their shapes startled me. I'd told Prachi, in trying and failing to beg off that night, that I was spending my summer ensconced in my dissertation and couldn't be disturbed. In truth, I had no coherent justification for the social skittishness that had become my norm. Yes, there was the mounting pressure of graduate school, but there was also some general allergy that erupted most acutely when I was surrounded by the hyperopic residents of my sister's version of San Francisco. None for me. I'd like to be on tonight, Chidi said, virtuously refusing a hit of my sativa indica blend, which made me anxious that I'd already begun. It's a useful skill to be able to walk into any room and get along with people, Neil, especially a room with a collective net worth of, he frowned, doing mental math, call it tens of millions. He rubbed his hands together gleefully, prepared, as always, to charm, persuade, finagle, and fundraise. If you thought more creatively, you could get one of these people to endow you a chair one day, or rethink the whole concept of a university, really bring it into the 21st century. I was already walking away. Upstairs, inside, we found the room arranged by twos. It reminded me of the opening of those Madeline books Prachi read growing up. 12 little couples in 2 straight lines. In 2 straight lines, they talked tech shop. They ate their brie. They swirled their wine. The betrothed Avi Kapoor tapped on his phone while Prachi, next to him, picked at red grapes and chatted with one of her Duke sorority sisters. Chidi shook hands with Avi, whom he knew from incestuous elite tech circles. I own our tardiness, Chidi lied to the happy couple on my behalf. I dozed through the afternoon following a late night out with the girl I'd been sleeping with. I remembered little of the prior evening's party, save the hot gas station whiff of coke and a dreadlocked white guy wearing a vial of ketamine around his neck, plucking solemnly at a sitar. My call with Fabian Fisher ran long, Chidi went on. He sends his best, Avi. Chidi had dropped out of Caltech when a billionaire awarded him $100,000 to pursue a 3D printing venture. He'd since launched a wetware product dealing with longevity, that is, attempting to prolong the human lifespan to Old Testament proportions. He lived off a uniquely Californian income in the interim, exit money from the first company's sale, supplemented with Bitcoin investments. He was half Nigerian, the product of an Oakland Hills secular Jewish mother and a Lagos transplanted doctor. And I attributed all differences between us, his proclivity for risk, his openness with his parents, to the non-immigrant side. Avi appeared duly impressed. Are you guys raising? I'm surprised you're out. Then to me, book going okay, Neil? Dissertation. A book implies someone's going to read it. It's coming. At that time, I was going to be an Americanist, a professional interpreter of this land and its layers. My specialty was to be late 1800s California, with a focus on the rise of immigration, the ballooning of enterprise, and the economic stratifications that buoyed the nation into the 20th century. In other words, the aftermath of the gold rush. But these days, staring at the papers piling up on my desk, I couldn't imagine spending decades burrowing into this corner of the past. It didn't help that I stood out in this land of utopian techno-futurists, committed as I was to the secular preservationist priesthood that is the academy. You know, Prachi said, we just hired an ex-academic from Berkeley for my team. She fumbled for her name, then remembered. I knew the woman. Oh, she's ABD, all but dissertation, I clarified at Prachi's quizzical expression. The ABD wasn't the first to flee the academy for big tech 6 figures and office nap pods, and wouldn't be the last. The specter of dropping out, burning out, loomed over my life and the lives of many in my cohort. Few of us would land where she had. Without Berkeley, I was a Southern State School grad with 2 years of debate coaching on my resume. Prachi, that sounds like ABCD. No one had applied that acronym, American-born confused Stacy, to me in quite some time. We'd grown out of it as we grew up. Our generation had perhaps not resolved, but had at least begun to get over that Miss Teen India pageant riddle. What does it mean to be both Indian and American? Avi chortled. Drop the C and you're an ABD. You could follow her to the big bucks. I think I'll remain confused for now.
Thank you, Sanjena. Thank you. It's really cool to hear an author read from a book you've already read, because of course I have my own voices for your characters. So it's really neat to hear, to some degree probably, but to hear how you hear them, how they talk in your head. That's really cool. Thank you so much. We have 2 more songwriters, and then who knows? Our next songwriter has never performed with us online, so he is a newbie here online. Welcome, David Meadow.
Okay, hi everyone. Excited to debut online. I didn't know that I was going to have to follow such an amazing act as the author herself, so I'm quite humbled and freaked out. But yes, wonderful reading. Thank you so much. And this is pretty self-explanatory. The bit about the basement where the kids go to sort of carve out a space where they can be free from their parents' harrying really resonated with me, and I wanted to pick up a little on that. I didn't want to tell a story that wasn't mine own, but I did go to a fancy private school where you were expected to go to a fancy college, and the more I wrote this, the more I found myself connecting with the characters, so I thought that was neat. You think the atmosphere a downer, but first glances don't tell all. Place bodies look again. You'd think the dark and dank a turn off, but turn on your heel, you'll miss the magic of this sacred den. Here laid out with ping pong rackets, foosball tables, if we're lucky, big screen TVs, video games in a cold, unfinished room, a semblance of our doom. We need a respite from the hounding and the smothering we get outside these dingy walls. The social climbing, the surveillance, and the pressure to excel. We answer other calls. In the basement, free to pool our meager knowledge. Sex, cars, pop songs, help each other navigate from a cold, unfinished room. American teenagehood. And sure, it's not a perfect haven. Cruel and rigorous demands find their own flavor here. But it's refreshing still to cross-train as your peers twist different arms and bend the other ear. Now I'm grown, I run a better class of gauntlet, more respect and pay, yet how I miss the chase in that cold, unfinished room for a semblance of my doom, for a semblance of my doom, for a semblance of my doom. Thank you. Thank you very much.
David Meadow, everyone. Thank you. That was great. I also had an unfinished basement growing up, and that just brought me back. I didn't focus as much on that part of the book, and now it just brought it right present for me of how much I actually relate to that as well. This place you go with your friends to get away from the adults, which we have all become. For the next performer, we're going to bring him on to introduce his piece, but he made a video of it because he is hiding away in a cabin somewhere for reasons I don't know, so he can explain that. Welcome, William Belote.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. My face is probably freezing up as I speak, but that's why I slapped together a quick lyric video just so I could still participate. Really glad to be joining all of you today. Couple things. There's actually words I sing that are different in the lyrics because I'm always kind of in rewrite. So there's been some changes to that. Love this book so much. I don't read that many novels, and this one just had me right away. I really related to Neil. I related to all the Bay Area, California stuff. I have a number of Indian friends, for what it's worth, and so it was just fun. It was just really fun, and related to Neil's underachieving romanticism, which I'm just glad you didn't break my heart at the end. I was not sure about him and Anita till the very end. Anyhow, that's it. So enjoy the video, and thank you, Tim, for running the show here.
In the home of the brave, be all that I could ever be and get everything I crave. But I'll always be an Indian, and I'm not about to bleach my skin. So the only way to fit in is with money and a fast grin and fear of the grave. So let's go. I'm sinking into history, 'cause the present is too much. Trying to portray confidence with a line or two, my crutch. In you there's electricity, my response, a fait accompli. Sometimes I'd like to disagree, but your hand's on my knee. Damn, you know how to touch. Looks like we're gold diggers, looking for the best. We're gold diggers, they can keep the rest. Through the haze of wealth, we defined our goals. For the family, we ignored our souls. Now we're hooked on ghosts and the spirit of gold. To shine, gambling against random chance, you and I write our storyline. We tried to honor the past, but the swindle could never last. The future spreads out from convictions and doubt, not from titles or caste. But we were looking for the best. We were gold diggers, they can't keep the rest. We were gold diggers, looking for the best. We were gold diggers, they can't keep the rest.
Right.
That's the
All right.
70s, 80s going on. I want to see it at like the end of the movie.
Gold diggers.
Got a little hook in there.
Yeah,
And
very
the-
hooky.
The video was really fun with that.
You know, it's actually scenery from very, that I've taken from around this cabin.
From your hideout in the cabin?
It's in Cambria, which is on the central coast.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful area, and easy to take beautiful pictures and videos. So I just grabbed a few things. And
that was really fun. That's it,
Cool.
you guys. So that was William Belote, and he played the final song of the evening. Thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank Sanjena Sathian for writing this book, for coming on our show, and giving us all such great inspiration. I would also like to thank Susan Huang, who started this book club, but is also running our tech right now, which I've done by myself, and it's an S show. So yeah, it sounds like what William's doing on his computer right now. It's like ding, 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 ding. That's me hosting a show and hitting a bunch of buttons. So thank you so much, Susan Huang, for being here and doing this for us. I would also like to thank all of our songwriters and you for tuning into this rather than that other show. You know, this was better. And once again, please visit our website at labushwickbookclub.com. Also, if you have a pile of money burning a hole through your pocket, you can donate to us. It's at my Venmo at Stacy Rock Music. And we use that normally when it's a live out in the world show. We pay our sound guy with your donations, but here we're paying for all of our live streaming stuff that's happening. So if you care to give, that's at Stacy Rock Music. And that's all for now, folks. Thank you so much. Bye. Our next book is Howl, May 23rd. Bye.
Bye.
It's me still. See, I have this one technical thing I have to do, which is turn off the streaming. And this is what the whole show looks like when I'm in charge of that.